Good evening. Here tonight to present the results in somewhat of a summary form for the audit that we conducted for the school district for the year that ended June 30th of 2022. The PowerPoint that we put together is hopefully on the TV screen. We went over this report a couple of weeks ago with all the members of the audit committee in large detail. So tonight is more of an overview, just so those who are watching can understand what happened with the district financially for the year ended June 22. Is there a way to do the? It was under my paper. Sorry about that. There we go. Okay, so briefly, we're going to go over some of the required communications that auditors are required to provide their audit clients. And then I'm going to really focus just a couple of minutes on various aspects, as you could see, of the general fund, which is your primary operating fund. It's the fund that the voters vote upon each year for how you are to operate. And then we'll briefly just touch on, you do have some other funds, and we'll touch on some of the, the fund balances in those funds. And then we'll also talk about some of the debt service, your borrowings and your principal and interest. So as the auditor, you folks have responsibilities and we have responsibilities. So we lovingly refer to you guys as TCWG, those charged with governance. It is your role as the Board of Education to select and help the Finance Department implement the appropriate accounting policies that we say are okay with what you're doing. It's your responsibility to make sure that these financial statements that we've provided an audit opinion on are done in accordance with U.S. Generally Accepted Accounting Principles. It is your responsibility in overseeing, the internal controls of the district to make sure that the financial reporting is proper. If the controls are not, properly in place, then the numbers that they generate may not work. You're obviously subject to many laws, regulations, whether it's state regulations, federal regulations. This year, the district received a lot of federal aid, like most districts did, because of the pandemic. So there's a whole set of other requirements that go along with those funds. You are required to make sure that any financial records that we ask for, that we get as part of the audit. Otherwise, there would be scope limitations, and you don't want any of that. And of course, as the board, you set the tone at the top. Our responsibilities seem to be a longer list. We're required to deliver to you the independent auditor's report, and that's part of the bigger document that you've all received, John has received, and can upload to New York State. We've issued what's known as an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion on the district's finances, basically saying that we believe all the numbers that you gave us and that we audited fairly present what happened here this year. This year, school districts in New York, whether you have enough federal money or not, are required to undergo what's known as a yellow book audit. It's under some federal standards. That happens every year. There's just certain audit requirements that we have. But this year, you also, because of the large amount of federal aid that you received over $750,000 this year. That requires a special compliance audit where we have to make sure that you're spending the federal dollars the way the feds want it spent. And that also went off without any issues. Also, as part of the audit, we audit the extra classroom activities. And we've also sent you a management letter with some comments and things that we, some minor things that we think can be improved. Happy to report that, we would have to report to you if we came across any fraud or illegal acts in the district, and we did not. The business office team led by John, very cooperative during the audit, no issues in getting this voluminous amount of information. Just so everyone knows, the audit runs over several months. It starts in late spring, early summer with some preliminary audit work. Then we're here in the heat of the summer, in August, getting all the information from John and his crew. And then by the time the state gets the information out that we need to finish this, we wrap it up in September and get the report out. So what were the numbers? Here we go. This is a high-level summary, and then we'll dive into some of the detail. The revenues to support the district's operations were budgeted, as you could see, at about $52.1 million. And the good news in the third column, the actual revenues came in at $53.1 million, or about $1 million better than you had anticipated. And we'll go over some of that detail. On the expense side, you had planned from operating monies to spend about $53.6 million, and the district only spent about $51.2 million, with some money not yet expended but encumbered, set aside to be spent this year. So you can see the variance there. You underspent the budget by about $1.9 million. You had savings of $1.9 million. So the combination of the revenue things coming in better and expenditures coming in less, what you see kind of at the bottom of the first two columns is that the district, when you adopted the budget and the voters approved the budget, you actually expected to utilize about $1.5 million of fund balance. If everything came in according to plan, your fund balance would have dropped, a planned drop in fund balance of $1.5 million in both the original and final budget. But the good news in the actual column, the third number up from the bottom, is not only did you not have to reduce your fund balance, but you actually added just over $1 million to your fund balance. So really a positive, variance overall in the last column of about $2 million. So that $1 million surplus for the year gets added to the beginning fund balance, which started the year at $10.8 million, and so the district ended the year with $11.8 million in its fund balance. So taking a slightly deeper dive in the revenues that the district receives, as most districts in Westchester do, most of the revenue comes from the levy of property taxes to its residents. And this year you had budgeted to levy of the actual property tax levy at about $35.8 million, and you could see basically in Westchester the property taxes come in as budgeted. You are made whole by the town, and anything that they don't collect, it's their problem. They gotta give you all the money. There are some adjustments for some small, like SCAR type adjustments, small claim adjustments, but basically that's the property tax. The school tax relief is still money that comes directly from the state to the school, and it provides a break for homeowners on a portion of their school property tax bill. Some homeowners get the school tax relief directly, depending on their income level, but this is the money that came directly to the school. So it's kind of like part of the property tax that is levied. The third line is the sales tax distribution from Westchester County. Westchester shares its sales tax monies with all of the municipalities and school districts in Westchester, except the big cities like Yonkers, who have their own. You estimated about $700,000 on sales tax collections, and like everybody else, the sales tax was really humming in 21-22, and it came in, as you can see, at $900,000 this year, which was even greater than the previous year as we were coming out of the pandemic, and sales were higher. Obviously, gas prices were higher, and so all of that money trickles back to all the school districts. Tuition here is actually a big revenue for this district. You do have a lot of out-of-district students who you provide services for, and you could see that came in slightly better than budget, came in at almost $2 million, and again, that's about $100,000 even more than last year. Your state aid this year, you raised the amount that you budgeted. You budgeted $8.5 million, and it came in at $8.9 million, so you did about $400,000 better than your budget plan, and almost $1 million more than what you collected in state aid last year. Some of that is obviously the state increased, various aids to all school districts in the state. You also, took on some debt service obligations, and you get some reimbursement related to that as well. So that's why your state aid is in good shape. And then federal aid, a lot of this is some of the stimulus money that came in. Obviously, not much was anticipated in the budget, and it came in at about $212,000 this year. So all these positive revenues that we show here show that they came in about $900,000 better than budget, which is a good thing. which allowed you not to have to, you anticipated needing to transfer $400,000 in from your debt service fund to help offset your debt service obligations. You didn't need to do that because all these other revenues came in very well. So you're able to kind of hold the money in that debt service fund and saving it for another day. So that's the revenue story. And just to, we provided just a very quick synopsis of where the revenues have been the last 3 years. And you can see it, they're pretty stagnant, 51.3 million in 20, 51.2 million in 21, and it jumped to 52.8 million this year with the largest increase coming in state aid. On the expenditure side of the equation, again, we're not showing all the expenditures for the fund here. So at the bottom, we try to give you like an overall flavor of what's happening here. So these account for about 70% of your overall spending. And what you could basically see is in the third column, the actual between all of these major categories like buildings and grounds, like the operation and maintenance of the district, the main teaching categories of the district where all, a large portion of, teacher salaries are, the students with disabilities programs and the costs related to that, and then various employee benefit accounts such as teachers' retirement, Social Security, health insurance. So these are the major costs of the district. And what you basically see is overall this spending was about $34.9 million, and in the far right column last year was about 33.9. So it was up about $1 million or about 3% or so. So some of that is obviously salary increases, step increases for the staff, and various benefits like health insurance and things like that, just year over year increases. But overall, a modest about 3% increase in overall spending. And again, we provide here a 3-year expenditure comparison. And you could see in 2020, this group of expenditures totaled 33.7. This is obviously not all of the expenses, just the big ones, going to just over 34 million in 21, and then a bigger jump in 22. Obviously, some of this is skewed by the pandemic, and obviously there were certain costs during 20 and 21 that would normally have occurred that did not occur. A lot of extracurricular stuff and things like that. So that's why you see like a larger jump here in 22 as things return to a more normal level. So the important thing for you is the fund balance. So this is like your savings account and what you have, and really it's your health, of the district going forward. So the district is in good shape. You could see overall the fund balance over the 3 years has grown from a total of 9 million in 2020 to 10.8 million that we saw last year. And now from the other page I showed you, it grew to $11.8 million. Of that $11.8 million, you have different buckets for that money. So it's not, oh, we have $11 million, we could just, party or do whatever. So 6 million of that, so close to 60% of the fund balance has been restricted. So restricted fund balance is set up in accordance with either education law or general municipal law, but none of these are set up without Board of Education action. So you take the action, but it's in accordance with one of those laws. So one of your biggest items in restricted fund balance is the monies you have set aside to handle tax certiorari claims, and you could see it's just over $2 million is set aside for that. Can only be used for that. You have money set aside for what's known as the employee benefit accrued liability. So you have employees who have unused vacation, not teachers, but other employees of the district, sick leave and various things. So this is a pot of money that's set aside so that should folks retire and be entitled to a payout, you have this pot of money set aside that can be used to make those payments. Then you have money set aside for retirement contributions, the employees' retirement system and the teachers' retirement system. So you have $1 million, the same as last year, set aside. So obviously right now the stock market's not doing too well. and when they figure out the rates for the state retirement system, you know, if they've lost a lot of money up there, they're going to try to make up for that by billing everybody more money. So this would be something where if they had to increase the rates significantly, rather than having to ask the taxpayers for that money, you have this pot that could help ease that if those rates do go up. Same thing for the teachers' retirement system. And again, these can only be used for those purposes. You have money set aside for liability claims. This is stuff that, you know, insurance wouldn't cover, deductibles and different things. So obviously we've had a lot of storm damage in this region and things like that. So this would be a pot that you could go to, you know, if you needed resources for something like that. And then this is the first year there's money set aside starting for future capital projects. I believe, I don't remember the timing, but the voters approved a capital reserve, you know, that has limits and years and what it could be used for. Capital reserve is very restrictive, so the voters had to allow you to establish it. Now you can put money into it, you know, over the years up to the maximum that they approved. And then when you want to use those monies, you also have to have a referendum and have voter approval on whatever it is that you're going to use those funds for. So this was just kind of the beginning of setting money aside, and this allows you to, you know, pay for things almost like as a pay-as-you-go rather than bonding and incurring, you know, debt and other stuff. So that's your restricted fund balance, $6 million. Then you have what's known as assigned fund balance. You have purchase orders or POs, so these were just things that were not finished at the end of June, and these will carry over into the current year to finish paying them. And then you utilize just over $3 million to balance your 22-23 budget. Now you do see that that's a big increase over what was utilized to balance the budgets the last couple of years, but some of that is for one-shot things. So you do have some capital money that you're doing on the next project that you're using some of this fund balance for, so it's a one-time thing, and that next year your appropriation of fund balance should go back to normal levels. So you're using your savings account for like a one-time purpose, which is a good thing to do. So what you're left with is your unassigned fund balance this year of $2.2 million. Last year, you know, it's down from last year, but last year you were over the 4% limit that is allowed for unassigned fund balance under New York State law. The 2.2 gets you back in compliance with the 4% maximum, 4% of the subsequent year's budget amount. So the district is really in decent shape for this. You know, you have the maximum amount in your unassigned fund balance. You're using, you know, some of your budget money to pay for capital related things, and then you have, you know, a nice pot of funds set aside, you know, for restricted to deal with these other matters. And then briefly, just on some of the fund balances in the other funds the district operates, you have a capital projects fund for big capital projects going on. That's down to $1 million here, but obviously there's some other stuff going on, you know, as we move into 22-23 year, some of it funded by, you know, the transfer from general, and there might be some other, you know, debt issued to finance the rest of the capital project. We talked briefly about the debt service fund and the money that came into that fund this year. So you have $2.6 million in that fund. That can be used to help offset future debt service payments that the district has, your principal and interest obligations. So that's nice. You know, you should develop a plan to use these funds, you know, over time. You don't want to use it all in one year and then not have it for the next year. School lunch fund this year, you know, kind of got back to a more normal level of operations. Obviously this year, like, everybody got the free lunches and everything, which is over now. But, you know, the activity was back to more normal levels, you know, post-pandemic. The special purpose fund primarily has the extra classroom activities in it. That's the big chunk of that this year. It used to not be in this fund. We had to move that a year or two ago. So overall, you know, you do have, you know, $4 million in these other funds, but mostly, you know, that's debt service, and it's restricted just for those purposes. And then to just touch on where the district stands with its outstanding debt, as you can see on the top half of the page, the district currently has 4 bonds outstanding. mostly for construction or refinancing previously issued bonds to get a lower interest rate. So at June 30th, 22, the district has just over $45 million in outstanding, capital debt. And on the bottom of the page, you basically see what the annual debt service to service that $45 million in debt, for principal and interest each of the years. There's also a small energy performance contract that remains that's done in the next 2 years. And with that, that is all I had. So I'd be glad to take any comments or questions.
Thank you so much for that. That was a really helpful, in-depth report. Does anyone have comments or questions? Anything else that you all want to highlight?
Maybe I can add one thing. Just,
Yeah.
can you go back to slide 10?
Can I? Let's see if I can. Which one is
It's
10?
the fund balance.
Fund balance. Okay.
Okay. I think the important thing, Scott already mentioned it. I just want to set the expectation. Don't expect that this number will keep going up, because Scott already mentioned that there's $2 million dedicated to the middle school HVAC, and that money will be used. So even though right now you see $11.8 million, I really see $9.8 million, because $2 million is really dedicated to the capital project. So that is going to be used.
Thank you. Yeah, that's important to highlight.
Yeah. The only other thing I want to add is, even though we're basically done, because of the federal aid that the district got this year in excess of $750, we have to file a report with the Federal Audit Clearinghouse. Their system was down for a couple of weeks, I don't know. So they just opened it up now. So John will be receiving an email once we upload the data of what federal aid that you had, what we tested, what our findings were, which were none. John's going to get an email, I'm going to get an email that we both have to, sign off on that, and then the Federal Audit Clearinghouse will accept, the filing. So John, expect that somewhere, because now we're trying to catch up, because they literally just opened it up.
This is actually the first time our district has to do it, because of the federal fund, and
Right.
we exceeded $750,000. And once the board accept this today, we'll upload the data to the SED and OSC website, because our deadline is the 15th.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I just wanted to say congratulations to John's team. I know it's a really big deal to have a clean audit. It's their job to find problems. And even the recommendations, I think, were all, really minor things that we can work on over time. So congratulations, it's a huge accomplishment.
Thank you.
And the community should know that we meet several times in the spring, and we met, what was that, just 2 weeks ago, to go over the documents very thoroughly. So, we're very much in the know, which, thank you for your tutelage on all of that.
Sure.
And then also, all the reports will be uploaded onto the district website tomorrow. We already asked Deborah to post.
Great.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a
Thank
good
you very
night.